Our next speaker for this.
Make me presenter.
Make her presenter. So our next speaker for this session is Dr. Valarmati K. She is the Associate Professor at the Oxford College of Engineering. She holds a PhD from Bharatidasan University in the field of industrial biotechnology, and she has many research papers in national and international repute. So ma'am, it is over to you to start this session.
Is the slide visible?
Not yet, ma'am.
No?
No.
No?
Yes.
Good morning to dear participants. So first of all, I would like to express my gratitude to Dr. B.K. Manjunath, convener, faculty AICT sponsored faculty development program, for giving me an opportunity to present my views in this FDP. So today I am going to handle about biotech entrepreneurship ideas and opportunities. So usually we will be thinking like entrepreneurship means it is like very big ideas we need or very innovative ideas we need. So it is not like that. We can start from the basics and we can go ahead with our entrepreneurship ideas and we can start our own business venture. So I am going to start with the basic ideas and with the advanced. So first thing about us biofertilizer production. So as you all know, biofertilizers are used to supplement chemical fertilizers, and also this will be used to maintain the soil fertility, and biofertilizers are supplemented to chemical fertilizers. And when we compare to the biofertilizers to these normal fertilizers, these are cheap, and also it will reduce the cost of cultivation, and it will increase the crop yield by 4 to 5% on an average. And nowadays organic farming is taking a boom, so that biofertilizers market is also increasing, and it is expected to reach $15.9 billion by 2027 at a compound annual growth rate of 11.5% during the forecast period of 2020 to 2027. And also this organic farming contribute to improve the rural livelihoods and also the sustainable development through generating rural employment opportunities, and it will increase the income of the farmers also. So only it is not mean that this organic agriculture can be developed only in the developed countries. Even developing countries can contribute more to this biofertilizer production, so that it can contribute more to the foreign exchanges, green productivity, and sustainable socio-economic development. And these are all some of the type of biofertilizers, such as nitrogen fixers, potassium solubilizers, potassium mobilizers, zinc solubilizer, phytochromone producers, endophytic bacteria, and plant growth promoting rhizobacteria, siderophore producers, sulfur oxidizers, phosphate mobilizers, and phosphate solubilizers, etc. And in India, we have this major biofertilizer production under the government is National Fertilizers Limited. So here there are 4 types of biofertilizers is being produced in this National Fertilizer Limited, that is Rhizobium, Acetobacter, phosphate solubilizing bacteria, and zinc solubilizing bacteria. And this, when we see about this Rhizobium symbiotic fertilizer, this is used for this pulses and legumes such as grams, peas, lentil, moong, urad, cowpea, arhar, oil, and then groundnut and soya beans, legumes, barsim, all this cereals particularly. And when we take this Acetobacter, so this is used for wheat, jowar, barley, maize, paddy, mustard, sunflower, sesame, cotton, sugarcane, banana, grapes, papaya, watermelon, onion, etc. So many crops this is being used. And this phosphate solubilizing bacteria such as Pseudomonas, Bacillus, Micrococcus Flavobacterium and Aspergillus penicillium, all these are used. And this type of phosphate solubilizing bacteria, this fertilizer, this biofertilizer is not specific to particular plants. All type of plants you can use this phosphate solubilizing bacteria. And the next is zinc solubilizing bacteria such as Pseudomonas can be used for particularly cereals, millet, pulses, vegetables, fiber and oil seed crops. And another one, most advanced fertilizer, biofertilizer, what is being produced here is neem coated urea. So actually this agronomical trial on paddy and wheat crops with neem coated urea as a source of nitrogen. So here the urea will be used as a source of nitrogen. This produced significantly higher yield at research as well as in farm level. Okay, farm level. So this has been included in this fertilizer control order in 2004. So what is the advantage of this using this neem coated urea is, so this is used to improve the uptake of nitrogen, potassium and sulfur significantly. So that balanced use of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium along with these requirements of secondary and micronutrients increase the yield at economic level. So of the major three nutrients which has been required for this fertilizers, that is nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, this nitrogen has received the maximum attention because nitrogen gets easily converted into available forms, and this being when we are applying for the crop nutrition, the uptake of the nitrogen has been more when compared to the other components. So what happens is nitrogen also, recovery of nitrogen under the irrigated and submerged condition is hardly 35% due to the various kind of losses. So like denitrification and ammonia volatilization and leaching. So when you are coating this with neem, when we are coating this urea with this neem, the loss of nitrogen due to all these possibilities is being reduced, so that the uptake of the nitrogen is being increased, so that the efficiency of this urea is being increased. So but in USA they have been used, instead of this neem coated, they were trying to inhibitors such as nitropyrin and terosol. But when we are comparing the cost benefits of this urea, neem coated urea and this nitropyrin and terosol, the cost of this nitropyrin and terosol is very high when compared to neem. So this neem coated urea is the most advanced as well as most economically it is feasible. So when we are thinking about the entrepreneurship as a biotechnologist, you can introduce more of new technologies into this biofertilizer production, and we can start a startup for this particular biofertilizers. As of now in the market we have only these 4 running biofertilizers, highly economically running biofertilizers by this National Fertilizer Limited. Other than this, the top 10 companies which is in global fertilizers market is Itapoliana, Tata Chemicals, Multiplex, Coromandel, and then Scott's Miracle, Sigma AgriScience, Biochem, and California Organic Fertilizers, Camson. So these are all the companies operating in global market. Okay, globally these are all the companies which are operating very high economically or a profit basis with respect to biofertilizers. Still so many opportunities are there in opening a startup with respect to biofertilizers. And the next opportunity what we can think about is the bee apiaries. We might not have thought of bee apiaries. We may think that is only the uneducated people or very poor people can do this bee apiaries, but we can include our biotechnological knowledge into this, and we can increase the production of this honey, because the honey seems all set to replace the sugar bottles in homes, coffee houses and restaurants, and because thanks to the public becoming more health conscious. So you can start a business. Either you can help the farmers by means of pollination of through your apiaries, because they will not be very well versed technically for the pollination technologies. So you can have either rather producing the honey, you can have a pollination center where you can pollinate the bees and distribute to the farmers, or you can harvest and sell honey. Not only the honey, you can also harvest beeswax, bee pollen, bee venom, royal jelly. So it's not only the honey, so many byproducts are also there, which is been into the market very which has been taking the market very big. So examples of successful bee apiaries in India is recently this Honey Twix, a company called as Honey Twix. This has been developed by the two entrepreneurs Jigar Mehta and Paras Patani. So they formed this like 2 years back, and it is come under the company called as Network Foods LLP, and they have launched a product called Honey Twix. So what is this Honey Twix means? This has a food grade laminate and it will have 8 grams of honey. So we can directly squirt this into the mouth or squeezed into where tea or coffee without getting the fingers sticky. And you may think, what is that with new invention into it? But they are having almost like 300 distributors and 2,600 dealers, and they are having a turnover of 1.6 crore and produce about 30 lakh Twix packs per year. They are almost producing like 30 lakh Twix pack, and this is very popular with respect to 5-star hotels and then coffee outlets like Coffee Day and all. So, and also the market for honey is growing as the trend for the health eating is on the rise. And India, its exports of honey had slowed down, but as we are producing higher quality honey in the country now, there is growth potential in that too. According to CSE, India ranks 7th in honey production with around 65,000 metric tons of honey every year. The study also points out that the beekeeping employs more than 2.5 lakh farmers in the country, a number that is increasing continuously. The beekeeping business actually has seen a very big growth in the North India, such as Himachal Pradesh, Jammu, Kashmir and Punjab. When we come to the South India, only this Kerala is playing a very predominant role in this honey production. And also, but when we compare that quality of the honey in the Kerala, this is quality is very low because it is being produced from the mostly from the rubber trees. And we can actually start a beekeeping business for as low as rupees 20,000. And if you are selling the pollinating the bees and selling, so a box of Indian bees cost around rupees 2,000. But while one Italian Italian queen bee cost around rupees 7,500. And nowadays in this Uttar Kannada, this they are using, instead of the normal chamber, they are using a super chamber for extracting honey. So this super chamber, when compared to the normal chambers, the the super chambers will have a queen guard, brood chamber, and then outlet, smoker, okay, and honey extractor, everything together. When we are using this a super chamber instead of the normal chamber, so we are getting like 70 to 80 kg of honey from a single hive. So if you are usually normally using a normal chamber, you will be getting 10 to 15 kgs from a single hive. So this super chamber is again an innovation. So you can introduce your, we can introduce our innovations in all this pollinations and designing a chamber, and where we can get more of production, honey production. And also the Khadi and Village Industries Commission gives a loan with almost to 30 to 40% subsidy. And the horticulture department also processes loans to beekeepers for bee pollination. So we have various schemes. A beekeeper can procure a bank loan up to rupees 5 crore. And with the rising interest of entrepreneurs in bee farming, both government and individuals working at various levels and in different capacities government is introducing more and more of policies to improve to encourage the entrepreneurs in the beehiving process. And some of the famous, other than this Honey Twix, some of the famous bee honey products other than what we know is Dabur and and all this. Other than this, we have this West Indian honey, Cora, unprocessed honey. So when you compare the rate, 250 grams is almost priced to 210 rupees. 250 grams of this West Indian honey is being 210 rupees. And then when we come to the Malnad wild honey, so the 300 ml bottle of this honey is being priced at rupees 490. And this is being produced from the Malnad region, particularly from the myriad wildflowers. And then next is Royal Bee Brothers Tribal Forest Honey. So this honey, 500 grams bottle will be priced almost like to 840 rupees. When we compare the normal honey, what has been available in market and this honeys, and so you can see the difference. because it depends upon the quality, and some are unprocessed honey and some are raw honey, and some honeys are being extracted without killing the bees or without giving any harm to the bees. And the next is this Sattvic Sagadari unprocessed wild forest honey. So this has been 200 gram bottle is almost like 1,000 rupees. So it is not like that honey business will give a very less profit, and it gives a very high profit. And small incubators of up to 1 lakh, if you are going for a small scale, government is giving up to 1 lakh as an sanctioned amount for this starting this bee apiaries. And the next is the animal feed manufacturing. So we might not have thought of about this animal feed manufacturing. So usually nowadays the pet having a pet is being it is become very more people are having more of pets. So these animals need to consume balanced diets in order to grow and thrive properly, so that you can develop feed manufacturing business. You can, so where you can produce healthy animal feeds for fish, chicken, cattle, dogs and birds among others. So these are all the major animal feed manufacturers in India. When you see the livestock population in million in India, we have 191 million of cattle, 109 million of buffaloes, 65 millions of sheep and 135 millions of goat, and 11.7 million of dog and 10.3 of pig. So when we have all this, the requirement of the animal feed is also more. So the major market runners in this animal feed manufacturers is Sugna Feeds, Godrej Bipro and Nutritech. So you people also can think about the feeds which has been from the developing a feed from where we can start from the agricultural wastes, whether you can make it in the form of pellet, all this, and we can add the nutritional requirements into the pellet. You can collect the agricultural wastes and into that you can add the nutritional parameters and you can develop your own feed. And the next is bird hatchery. So bird hatchery, it is not required that you should have a bird farm. You can have, usually where there is an areas, this farmers will be if you are in an area where farmers will be grown more of bat, the farmers may not be able to buy the equipments which is used for the bat hatching, and they cannot wait for longer time to wait the eggs to hatch. If you are going for the normal process, the egg hatching time duration is more. Suppose if you are in an area where there are a lot of bird farmers, so you can set up an industrial hatchery where the farmers will be using your equipments for the hatching, and then you can, either it is not necessary you should have become a bird farmer, or you should have your own farm. So you can have the equipments which is required for the hatchery, bird hatching. So some of the equipments you can use is this Chickman series incubators, and these and all, the cost of this equipments is in lakhs, okay, 10 to 20 lakhs, and not all the farmers will be able to buy this. So when you are having this a hatchery where you can have all these equipments, the farmers will use your hatchery and they will pay you and get the work done. So the examples are Chickman series incubator, egg incubator, emu incubator, hatcher machine, setter and hatcher. And the next is what we can think about is fish hatchery. So fish hatchery is also very profitable, and there is a very high demand for fish in the market, because very less ocean fish. When we compare the market rate of the sea fish and the cultured fish, the market rate of the sea fish is very high. So not all the people can afford the sea fish. So nowadays the biotechnologically engineered fish hatcheries are getting into the market, so that we can breed large quantities of fish, not only for the edible, also this ornamental fishes also is taking up the market very high. So the top aquaculture companies in India are this Avanti Feeds, where this is based in Andhra Pradesh, and this is turnover is 3,851 crores, and the profit per year is 353 crores. And the next is Apex Frozen Food Limited, the Water Based Limited, Coastal Corporation Limited and Seal Aqua Limited. When we see about the market, world's biggest exporters, so India is dominating the export market in the shrimp. So it is not only like the sea shrimp or cultured shrimp is also into it. So not only fishes, we can think about the culturing the shrimps also, because India dominates the exports market next to Thailand. And when we compare to the where our shrimps and all is being marketed, is 40% is been exported to USA, and 17% is being to Canada. So also almost like all the countries, our shrimps is being exported. So you can think about this having a culture center for the shrimps. And the next another one growing business is tilapia farming. You might have heard about this jalebi fish. So this is another one. The tilapia farming is also taking into the market nowadays. So actually, according to this Marine Products Export Development Authority Chairman Leena Nair, so the tilapia fetches around rupees 120 to 150 per kg for the farmer, at a cost for the production of just rupees 60 per kg. So a farmer can make a profit of rupees 60,000 from a 3-ton capacity tank. So if you are having a 3-ton capacity tank, so we can make a profit of up to rupees 60,000. So per tank you are getting 3-ton tank, we are getting 60,000 profit. So if you are having more than 2 or 3 tanks, so the profit will increase accordingly. So we can think of starting and tilapia farming also. So usually over the years, the exports of Indian seafood have been on the increase, with many Indian brands in the preferred list. So because Europe, America and other highly developed nations usually would like to import the seafoods from India rather than other countries. And then the present market demand globally and also in India is for processed seafood. Other than this normal seafood, processed seafood is also taking up the market. So ideally, India needs to mainly focus and specialize on some high value species, climatically most adaptable for farming on the Indian soil and available. So such as different varieties of tuna, and then besides shrimp, we can introduce large scale tilapia also as a farming. In tilapia business, generally we can make a 6-figure income. So usually this tilapia farming generally originated in the Middle East and Africa, and now it has become the most profitable business in the most countries. So tilapia is the second popular seafood after crab, so that the farming of tilapia is flourishing. So, and it has also entered the list of best selling species like shrimp and salmon, next to shrimp, salmon and crab. And this tilapia is the most most taken aqua food when compared to all this, and the taste is also very nice. The largest producer of tilapia is China, Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines, and Taiwan is also now supply maximum tilapia in the global market. So India is next to this. So when we can, so still we have more of opportunities to improve this tilapia farming, and also this climatic conditions of India is very good suitable for tilapia. Tilapia is actually seasonal, and this will usually breed only in the warmer water. So the temperature should be of like 82 to 86 degree, and if the temperature is below 55 degrees, and we can see a drop in the growth rate. So hence India is actually suitable for tilapia farming, and the duration, the breeding time of the tilapia is only 3 months. So that it has a high breeding rate, and adult tilapia almost like produces 100 fries per week, so that we can increase the number of the tilapia. And tilapia is the second most farmed fish in the world. So but the commercial farming of tilapia is limited in India, even though this fish was introduced long back in 1952 in India, and in 1959 there was a ban on tilapia by the Fisheries Research Committee of India, thinking that it is a genetically engineered fish. And then now again after in 1959, so again the permission has been given. For presently in Ganga river system, the proportion of tilapia is about 7% of the total fish species, and it has been even though they say it is like below 55 degree, the tilapia is the growth rate of the tilapia reduces, but in the, from 35 degrees Celsius we can improve the growth of the tilapia. So we can think about cultivating this tilapia as one of our business. And the next is plant protection services. So when we compare to this, when we other than this biofertilizers, pesticides and all, nowadays sensor has been taken big into the market. So you can start about this pest surveillance control. So not all the farmers would be able to buy the sensors. So you can give it for rent, or you can manufacture the sensors in the low cost, so that it will be distributed to the farmers, and it will be used to monitor the plants and also protect them from pesticides, fungicides and insects. And we'll be using these advanced tools and chemicals. And what are the different sensors presently available in market for pest detection is, first is low power cameras and sensors. So these are nothing but image capturing sensors, which is used for pest detection, and this is the famous among farmers because it is cost is very low and high return on investment. So what is the function of this low power cameras and sensors is, so this traps we have to fix this in the form. So this will capture the images of the pest, and it will be sent to a centralized platform wireless, and these are all our wireless sensors. So based on the number of insects present in the traps, the farmers will determine the location of insect infestation, and they will take steps to remove them from fields. Along with its low cost, this sensor also offers advantages in terms of high scalability and mobility. So you can, very big farms also, we can use this low power cameras and sensors. And the next type of sensor is high power thermal sensors. So this low power, when we compare to this low power cameras, this high power thermal sensors are more advantageous as well as more advanced. So this low power image sensors can only click random images and of images of insects that are visible from the naked eye. But whenever this various pathogens ranging in millimeters also will cause very much effect to the field, so this high power thermal sensors will use the thermography principle. So this will be using the infrared sensors, so that it will measure the amount of light reflected by a surface. So whenever there is a every surface usually reflects some amount of light energy. So plants and soils have some special spectrum. So that will be already pre-recorded in the spectrometers. Suppose in case of a pathogen attacking the plant leaves, the spectrum range of the plants will change. So the normal spectrum range will be already been monitored or been recorded in the sensors. So when there is an infection by this pathogen, so the spectrum range of the plants will change, so that it will indicate that the plant is being infected by the pest. So this method has been highly effective in detecting the insects as well as their life cycle stage. So when the number of insects is increasing, when they are breeding, even that can be monitored using this high power thermal sensors. But this has been expensive when compared to all the other low power camera and sensors. So you can think of developing using the same technology. You can think of developing a low cost based sensors. And the next is fluorescence image sensing. So in this method, we will be measuring the amount of chlorophyll present in a plant based upon the change in the fluorescence parameter. So here we will be using an optical camera which will capture the images of the plant leaves and then compare it with the existing images of a healthy leaf. Suppose if there is any infection, so obviously the chlorophyll content of the infected leaves will get changed. So this type of fluorescence sense imaging will detect the change in the chlorophyll pattern. So this change in the chlorophyll pattern will tell you whether there is a presence of pathogen or pest. So even though this method detects the presence of pest in a crop, its applicability of this sensors in the field is highly limited due to scalability issues, because when you are scaling up this type of sensors, the cost of the sensors will increase, so that the farmers will not be wanting to buy this, not wanting to invest more amount into the sensors. So you can think of using the same principle, you can think of designing a low cost based sensor. And the next sensors is acoustic sensors. So this sensors is particularly used for detecting the bugs and rodents, and this will be using through the sound detection. Previously we were using this chlorophyll and then light reflection, and this is by means of sound. The sensors will use the sound which will be created by the bugs and the rodents. So this will be kept in the random locations in the field. So this will pick up the sound waves of insects. So this location with high sound waves indicate a higher concentration of bugs, so that a farmer can thus spray pesticides on this location to ensure the quality of crops. So what we can do, the advancement in this is we can include another sensor where it will be automatically spray the pesticides. So now at present in market you have only the acoustic sensor which will detect the amount of amount of bugs present. So afterwards, depending upon that, the farmer has to use the spray the pesticides. So we can combine two sensors in such a way when that is detection is done for bugs, so automatically pesticide spraying we can do. So this so that we can make it as a cost effective method, and we can increase it to the wider scale. And the next type of sensors is gas sensors. So this when there is a stress happens on the plant, so usually this plants will produce some specific volatile chemical compounds. So these compounds usually differ from the stress that they feel. So for example, if the compound secreted due to environmental change will be different than the compound that will be excreted due to the pest infestation. So generally whatever the volatile compounds is being secreted is different when rather to the pest infestation. So this type of sensors will be identifying the amount of this volatile compounds, different volatile compounds which is being secreted. So when the volatile compounds is being changed or the composition increases, so it represents there is some infection is happens. Okay, so that we can take the precautions for the infection. So also this gas sensors we can use to identify and attack the pest or type and nature of the infection. The only drawback is this is sampling is required before we go for designing the sensor for each type of plant. The volatile compounds vary, so before we design the sensor, more of sampling is being required for the data analysis. And the next type of sensors what we can use is sound detection sensors. So this crop pest we can also detect using sound sensors. So usually these are also wireless sensors which will be kept in strategic points across the farm. So and this will be having antennas which will be picking up the sound waves in the vicinities. So the sensors will particularly pick up the sound which is being generated by the pest when they are chewing or flying or mating. Then the farmers will then record the noise level of that place for a certain period. So then after a short period, the farmer inputs the data into a computer so that they will analyze. So and the places with the pest infestations usually will have higher sound waves than the rest. So then the farmer will decide which method he has to go for controlling the pest right away, or that we can do any other methods. So this is also an affordable crop detection method, and this can be both large scale, used both in large scale as well as small scale. And usually it has little maintenance cost and above average accuracy. So but the problem with related to this sensors is only downside is the influence of environmental factors. So in case of rains or strong winds, you cannot collect the data by means of using the sensors. So the advantages of this sensors, major advantages of this sensors are monitoring pest infestation and crop health. So through distant monitoring, a farmer can easily collect information about the presence of insects and rodents. Sensors placed in different corners of the fields will be detecting the infestation of the pest or pathogens, and it will transmit it to a dashboard. So yeah, farmer can use this dashboard to instantly connect with his fields and manage the crop health. And then weather monitoring and analytics, the data collected from this pest detection sensors, when if you are recorded and analyzed properly, we can predict the attack by the pest. So if you are analyzing it more frequently, we can predict according to the different weather conditions. When the weather changes, which type of pest will attack, we can predict it before earlier only. And then automated crop health monitoring. So this is otherwise called as integrated pest management. So this will be encouraged to favor ecological, social and economic consequences of pest control. So this, according to this, we will be trying to limit the usage of pesticides to manage pest damage and ensure the least possible pesticide related hazards. So the implementation of this IoT in the IPM system will automate time consuming operations such as manual data point measurement and inspection. So this automation will make the process more accurate, cost effective, and assist farmers to take instant actions based on the response from the sensors. So when we think about the entrepreneurship, you can think about designing the sensors depending upon your local area. What is the problems, we can collect the data, what is the problem faced by the farmers, we can collect the feedback from the farmers, and accordingly by using our knowledge we can design a sensor. And the next is plant tissue culture laboratory. So another lucrative business idea is nowadays this plant tissue culture laboratory. We can use our personal skills and knowledge to collect the cells and tissues of plants, and we can use it to produce the cloned versions of plants, whether you can use micropropagation or tissue culture technologist. And there are many technologies where biotechnologists are used to, even this can plant tissue culture technologies can be used to prevent world hunger. So the different types of plant tissue culture products available in market now is antibiotics, antibodies, biological kits, enzymes, gelling agents, herbicides, hormones and growth regulators, micro and macronutrients, molecular biology reagents, plant diagnostics, substrates and inhibitors, vitamins. And the different techniques we can use is this hydroponics, microgreens, micropropagation. Nowadays this microgreens has been taken the market recently because people had become very diet conscious. So microgreens is been taking the market. So you can think of various opportunities with respect to this tissue culture. And for example, this plant tissue culture laboratory in Karnataka is particularly more into this plant tissue culture. So in particularly with respect to this promology or fruit science, this they have developed this through micropropagation Grand 9A banana variety, and another one Nanjangud Rasaballe, which is a GI tag banana. So they have increased the production by means of using this micropropagation, as well as a gulabi type of grape, seedless grape. So and next is like jackfruit, strawberries, lime, and star fruit. All these technologies, micropropagation technologies is being used for all these fruits for the increase in production, as well as more taste, improve the taste and all, as well as in not only in the fruit science, you can use it in the floriculture also for producing this potato. Usually potato for this micropropagation has been used for this in vitro tuberization, as well as they have been using this micropropagation for curry leaf and for increasing the production leaf of this curry leaf and this chili, and then Bayadagi Daba and Arca series and all. Also this floriculture and ornamentals. Usually the most widely works has been done in philodendron species, Tinospora, Anthurium, and then this dendrobium orchids, solid bamboo, all these. And also not only this ornamental plants, medicinal plants and aromatics like that long pepper, collis, patchouli, brahmi, quat, ashoka, stevia, glorissa superba, colchicine, all this. So still so many plant varieties, medicinal plant varieties, fruits is yet to be done. So we can think about, depending upon your local area, depending upon the demand of the people, we can think about increase in developing an entrepreneurship where we will be using this plant tissue culture technologies. And the next is biogas production. So this nowadays biogas has been it's been more of talk, it's been about the biogas, because the traditional gas has become expensive, and people have become more of like trying to save the nature, environmental pollution, all these parameters and all has been coming. So that biogas production is been taking up into, and we can use all this normal agricultural wastes, and then cow dung, poultry litter, agricultural residues such as rice straw, wheat straw, banana stem, maize stalks, sugar mill, and then industrial byproducts such as sugar mill, press mud, distillery spent wash, sago plant effluent, and municipal solid waste, slaughterhouse waste, vegetable market waste, kitchen waste. All these can be used for the biogas production. So it will be like waste management, as well as we are producing some product also. So usually this biogas utilization, so we can use as like biogas is also being used, as well as the bioslurry is also used. So this biogas which will be used as the pipe gas, transportation, electricity, and thermal, and bioslurry, which will be used as a fertilizer. So both, it is not like that we are taking the waste and from the waste we are producing some product, and the waste byproduct produced from that is also being used as a fertilizer. So it is like waste management, as well as we are getting economically money also. So these are all the biogas plant types presently available in India. So this is the household based 1 to 25 meter cube per day, and the next is community based biogas, and the large scale biogas. So now these are all little older versions of biogas. Now you can introduce, design an equipment where you can produce the biogas in the easier way. And these are all the example for large biogas plants which has been in India. So if you are not interested in producing the biogas, you can go for designing the biogas equipment manufacturing. So like biogas stove and other household or industrial equipment which will be powered by biogas. So you feel that biogas production is tough, so that we can you go for manufacturing the biogas equipment. So usually when you you will make a lot of money from people.
Dear participants, there is an internet glitch. Please wait for a few seconds. Madam will rejoin us.
Sorry, some technical glitch. I will be sharing the screen again. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ. Good.
Please bear with us. There is an internet glitch. Ma'am is reconnecting.
Sorry, a small technical glitch. So this is an example for this biogas. Biogas chow top for great cooking experience. So here it will be using the biogas from the digester tank, and this is one invention. And the next is home biogas. So here they are using this home biogas and bio toilet kit. So here we will be having the biodigester and then bio toilet accessory. So this toilet waste will be treated, and from that the biogas will be generated. So different innovations is been coming, and you can innovate more of like biogas equipments into it. And these are all the major biogas production companies like in India: VQuad, Air Science, Airzon, 21st Century Enviro Engineers Private Limited, CGE Power Private Limited, and Challenge Technology, Atmos Power. Very less biogas production companies are presently in market. So you can think about starting a biogas production company or biogas equipment manufacturing company. Sir, is the slide is visible?
Yes, it's visible, ma'am.
Ma'am, it is gone. Please reshare again.
Now, yeah, it's gone now.
Yeah. Now it's fine.
Yes, ma'am, it is fine now.
The next what we can think about starting is the seed processing services. So you can start normally, you can start think about manufacturing and selling biotechnologically engineered seeds to help the farmers so that they will have more profits. It is not necessary you should have a farming business. You can produce the seeds, biotechnologically engineered seeds, so that it will increase the profit, or it will increase the yield. And these are all the some of the major market players in this biotechnologically engineered seeds. And the first is National Seeds Corporation Limited, which is a government organization. Other than this we have this Syngenta company, which has been into producing seeds for this increasing the yields of baby corn, beans, bitter gourd, bottle gourd, sweet corn, tomato, watermelon, cabbage, capsicum, carrot, cauliflower, and almost all the seeds has been again. It has been stopping, Salma. There was a problem displaying the content. Sorry, some.
Yes, ma'am, visible.
How to go? 2, 3 slides. From which slide? From this slide. From this slide. Sorry again for the technical glitch. There is some network problem in the college. So another one market runner is Ganga Kaveri. This is from Karnataka, and they produce more of like cotton, maize, seeds of cotton, maize, sunflower, pearl millet, sorghum, wheat and all. And the next thing what we think about in seeds is biofortified seeds. So as we know, biofortification means including this micronutrients such as vitamins, zinc and iron into the seeds. So when the crops grow, they will biofortify themselves, which will have higher levels of minerals and vitamins in their seeds. So recently this 17 biofortified crops varieties is been dedicated to the nation by the Honorable Prime Minister on the World Food Day. So still so many crops is being yet to biofortified. We can introduce biofortified seeds in many type of crops. So you can think about having an entrepreneurial opportunities in this biofortified seeds. And the next is about the value added products from waste. So this agro wastes, from agro wastes we can develop n number of products, and we can more of it is profitable also. These products are more of profitable also. For example, for agro wastes we can produce biogas, biofertilizer, leather, biofuel, alcohol, energy, phosphorus and calcium, pulp and paper. So many products has been produced from the agro waste. And when we particularly take only the vegetable wastes, either we can go for bioremediation or we can go for producing biofuels, or we can use that as a substrate for metabolite production, or we can go for composting, and we can go for feeds. So when you talk about the biofuels, we have bioethanol, biomethane, biohydrogen, biodiesel. And when we are using this vegetable wastes as substrates for metabolic production, we can use that in enzyme as well as metabolic extraction. And same way composting, we can use this for biomanure, co-composting and vermicomposting and all. And the next is different biomass resources. Usually this biomass resources is being classified into lignocellulosic and starchy biomass, and oil seed crops and vegetable oils and microalgae. So usually this lignocellulosic and starchy biomass, if you take that, we can go for two types of processes, either biological transformation and thermal transformation. So biological transformation is a little big process. Thermal transformation will be little easier when compared to the biological transformation. But the products what we obtain through biological transformation is of more of economical orientation as well as environmental related. It is more of like profitable than when we compare to the thermal transformation. And when we see about the oil seed crops, vegetable oils and microalgae, more of like chemical transformation is being used compared to the biological transformation. So you can think about in using this biological transformation into this wastes, as well as from we can use this plastics also from agro based feedstocks, because plants are rich in carbohydrates, and such as corn, sugarcane and all have more of carbohydrate content. And as well as we have lignocellulosic feedstocks, and we have organic waste feedstocks. So we can produce more of products like bioplastics, oils, and from this we can develop more of wealth also. And the best example recently in Man Ki Baat, Prime Minister has mentioned about this. So a school dropout who builds a patented mission to turn banana waste into rope, and he earned. And so this Murugesan, PM Murugesan, he is a resident of Madurai in Tamil Nadu. And almost like 2 decades ago, he found a way to use the residual banana fiber and to weave them into ropes. And these ropes will be then used to make various products like mats, bags, etc. So after a series of trial and error, he developed a spinning machine using bicycle wheel rims and pulleys. And this is the first innovation at its best. So what they do is they will braid the strands together to achieve a good tensile strength, and then then it will be used for production of this bags, all this items. And he has patented his own mission, and so he has approached this BIRAC, and he has presented there, and this instituted, then they helped him in applying for patent and all. So and he developed a new invention or machine. Now he can actually, the wheel will yield about 2500 meters of rope, and he will be producing with this new mission around 15,000 meters of rope in one mission with 4 people, just 4 people. So this is also one of invention by means of which from the waste banana fiber he is producing. And the next is the change of animal manure into fertilizer pellet. So we usually this manure is been loaded in places, and the transportation of this manure and all is different. So when you are drying and we crush it and pelletize it into the form of pellets, so the transportation, everything will be easy. So that it will be having uniform size, shape, moisture, density and energy content. And then when we are making them into the pellet, the moisture content will be substantially lower than like 4 to 8% when compared to the raw biomass. And then this density of this manure will be higher than the raw biomass, so that it can be easily handled. And their uniform size and shape allows for a smaller and simple feed system, so that it reduces the cost. And same way we can use the biomass pellets from sugarcane bagasse. So what are the advantage of this, making this sugar pellets from this sugarcane bagasses? So it reduces the environmental pollution, and it changes the properties of bagasse, as well as it improves the energy of shortage situation. And the next is again pressing straws also into the pellets. So why we have to press the straws into the straw pellets is it is easy to burn and environmental friendly, and then you have economical benefit, as well as easy to store and transport. So usually this straw pellet has high calorific value, low moisture content and ash content. So after pressing, it makes it better to be burned while providing high combustion efficiency. So the combustion efficiency can be improved by pressing the straw into pellet. And usually the straw pellets are carbon neutral, which causes the zero carbon dioxide emission. So the straw pellets burning will return carbon dioxide to the atmosphere to be reused by the next biomass growth. So like that, more advantages are there with respect to this pellets. So we can think about making pellets of different agricultural wastes also. And the next is bioplastics. And as of production of bioplastics usually starts with the collection of starch material plants, which produce them by absorbing CO2 during photosynthesis. So what happens is the plant starch will be fermented by using lactobacillus bacteria, and then it will be converted into a long chain carbon polymer. So these PLA granules are then molded into small plastic pellets, which will be melted to make different kinds of objects and packaging materials. And otherwise we can use this polyhydroxy alkylate. So this polyester will be produced by fermenting raw vegetable materials such as carbohydrates, vegetable oil, or even glycerin bacterial strains. So this has been particularly extracted from bacteria such as Pseudomonas. So we have different technologies available for producing this bioplastics. And in Europe, researchers are been using this wastes from the food industry and agriculture, such as spoiled fruit juices, cattle manure, wheat straw, and grapevine shoots. All these been used as a key components for producing this packaging. So here what they will do means they will be synthesizing this polyhydroxy alkylate using microbes, and and they are biodegradable. So this is the principle they are using. So the leading bioplastic companies in India is True Green, and this the True Green is a firm. This is based out Ahmedabad, and they are producing 5 tons of bioplastics every year. And this company offers a large variety of packaging solutions with bioplastics in the form of cutlery, garbage bags, food gloves, shrink films, and other packaging, and laminating materials which are made out of bioplastics and which are completely biodegradable in 180 days. And these are all the largest, and True Green is the large scale producers of bioplastics in India. And the next is Ecolife. So Ecolife also is a firm which is based out of Chennai, and this produce bioplastics particularly for industrial packaging. So they use different varieties like perforation films and lamination films. So this bioplastics which is being produced by this Ecolife do not contain polyethylene or polypropylene, and they produce both single use as well as the reusable plastic bags. And these people and this Ecolife are using bioplastic which is being made out of potato and tapioca starch granules, and they are using other biomass also. So the end product is white and it looks like a plastic, but it is actually 100% biodegradable product. And these bags also decompose within 180 days, and if it is kept in normal water, it will be dissolved within 24 hours, and in 15 seconds if it is kept in boiling water. So if you are dissolving in normal water, it will get 24 hours is required, and if it is boiling water, only 15 seconds is being required, and their market rate is 3 rupees per bag. And then the next is NV Green, and this is a Bangalore based company, and which is the latest startup which is to enter into this bioplastic market. And this company is producing like 1,000 tons of bioplastics every year, and they are producing the bioplastics from biological ingredients like potato, tapioca, organic oil extracted, and organic oils which has been extracted from banana flowers and other vegetables along with natural starch, and they are selling a bag per rate of per bag ₹2. So, and this bag also decomposes within 180 days, and same as like the previous sites, in normal water it is 24 hours, and if it is in boiling water it is 15 seconds. And still very less people are into the market for this bioplastic. Still we have more of like opportunities to develop a bioplastic. And the next is biomolecules. And the next is about biomolecules. So usually nowadays researchers are working on extracting molecules from agricultural plant waste, so that can be used in medicine, cosmetics, food additives and more. So examples for such type of biomolecules include food pigments from fruit and chitosan from mushrooms, and this chitosan can be used in agricultural or medicinal uses. And sulforaphane, a compound that can be extracted from vegetables such as cauliflower and kale. Kale is same like cabbage, a different variety of cabbage. So all these have medicinal applications, and very less work is being done on this biomolecules particularly. And very much attractive out of these biomolecules are anthocyanins. So these are the pigments as well as the antioxidants which will be extracted from the blueberries and blackberries. So these are responsible for the color. So we can extract this anthocyanins, and these can be used in the beauty and skincare products. And the extraction process is very simple. So what we have to do means, first we have to homogenize the mixture, and then the chemicals has to be extracted and dried. So usually this process, what and all the process is being presently is uses mechanical and solvent base. So microorganisms are not yet involved. They are not yet started using the microorganisms for this biomolecule extractions. So we can think about using that into. And usually still apples, cherries and most type of berries, black olives and the skin of onions and potatoes. All these also have different classes of biomolecule, and we can try extracting the biomolecules from all this, and we can try to use it for different medicinal purposes as well as cosmetic industries. And the next value added product from waste is biocomposting. So as you know, we can compost the wastes using the aerobic and anaerobic digestion, and that can be used as a manure. And it will increase when compared to the normal fertilizers. This has more advantages. So it will increase the growth as well as water retention, nutrient retention and disease suppression. So much of thing. So either you can do the entrepreneurship in two ways. Either you can produce the compost or you can produce the biocomposting machines. So the general process of this biocomposting involves is, so we will be growing the food and we will get the food waste we will be using and the scraps, and the scraps has to be collected into the bio composting machines, and it will take some time for the processing, and you will get the organic waste compost, and that can be again put it into the as a manure for the growth of food and organics. So it is like a cycle. So now at presently different biocomposting machines available, or this Mantras, Make Compost and BioChest. All these are like different industrial scale and home scale biocomposters are available. So now in metropolitan cities, this biocomposting machines is been in a demand now, because in apartments and all, people are trying to use this biocomposters for producing this waste management, for waste managing. So you can think about designing your own biocomposting machine. And the next important category when we consider this wealth from waste is biofuels, because biofuels are the one of the largest sources of renewable energy, so in the transport sector. So biofuel types, usually it is been classified into biodiesel and bioethanol, and we have different types of this can be produced from different types of wastes. So we will be classifying this as first generation, second generation and third generation wastes. So first generation, we will be considering it as sucrose containing feedstocks and starchy materials, and examples for this sucrose containing feedstocks and starchy materials has been given: sugar beet, sweet sorghum and corn, barley. And second generation is lignocellulosic biomass such as wood, straw, grass and all, and the third generation is algal biomass. So all these are the sources for the generation of these biofuels. So basically we can talk, if we talk about the biofuels, we will be calling it as bioethanol and biodiesel. So if you are considering as a microalgae biomass, you will have residual biomass, oil, biophotolysis, and you can either go for dark fermentation. If you are going for biophotolysis and dark fermentation, biohydrogen we can produce. Very less works has been done in the biohydrogen production. So you can think about starting doing research or starting an entrepreneurship with respect to biohydrogen production. So bioethanol as well as biodiesel. And bioethanol, so usually nowadays we will be using this sugarcane, waste, maize. So all this will be used as a source for the production of ethanol. So this can be bioethanol, this can be used as an alternative to petrol. And usually we will be using this sugar or lignocellulosic products for the fermentation. And general process of this ethanol production has been, if we can use the produce the ethanol from corn wastes, or you can produce from sugarcane, or you can use from cellulosic. So whatever, if you are using this corn starch or cellulosic materials, before we go for the fermentation, we have to go for enzymatic hydrolysis. If you are using from sugarcane bagasse, directly we can go for fermentation. So other than this bioethanol, we will be having this byproducts such as DDGS and lignin. So DDGS is nothing but distillers dried grains. So this distillers dry grains can be used as a feed to poultry, as well as we can use to dairy and beef cattle as a co-product. So even the co-product is also valuable, and same as like algal biomass, also we can produce the bioethanol. So this is the process by means of which we will be producing overall process of the production of ethanol. And the next, these are all the major bioethanol producers in India as of now: Tata Chemicals, International Crops Research Institute for the Semi-Arid Tropics, Tulsi Bioethanol, and Hindustan Organic Chemicals. And out of this Tata and Tulsi is sector has been present. And the next is biodiesel. So same as like bioethanol, this biodiesel is also being derived from plants, and it will be consisting of long chain fatty acid esters. So usually this is made by chemically reacting such as lipids such as animal fat, soybean oil or some other vegetable oil with an alcohol, producing a methyl ethyl or propyl ester. So this is the biodiesel cycle. So if you take the vegetable oils or crude vegetable oils or refined vegetable oils, we have to go for trans esterification, and that can be used as a biodiesel. So major biodiesel companies in India are Drive, Go Green Fuel, ADM, Universal Biofuels, Bharat Biodiesel, Bharat Petroleum, Biodiesel, Avalon Clean Energy, and very less companies is being into the market when we compare for bioethanol and biodiesel. So you have more of like opportunities still with respect to this bioenergy production. And the next, another one latest technology is bio-based leathers. So nowadays more of like killing animals or using fur and feathers of animals is being like taking people are thinking so much with respect to the environmental oriented, so that bio-based leathers are taking the market. So there some examples in India, it is very less, and some examples for this bio-based leathers are cereal crop leather by Volkswagen store. So this companies the all these leathers we will be calling it as vegan leather, and this is made from a mix of polyurethane and bio oil. So this bio oil what they are using is from cereal crops, and what has been actually they are growing organically grown in the northern Europe. So usually they are using this vegan leather from the bio oil which has been extracted from the crops which has been grown organically. So that is called a cereal crop leather by Volkswagen store. And the next is pineapple. ಯಾವಾಗಿಂದ but it is going for me without any problem. So, and the next is pineapple leather by Pinatex. So Pinatex is, am I audible to the participants?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So Pinatex, a natural vegan leather. This has been made from the pineapple leaves. So this pineapple leaves are the byproduct of existing pineapple harvest. After they harvest the pineapple, the leaves are the byproduct of the pineapple harvest. So they produce more of pineapple in that particular region, and keeping the environmental impact, so that they started producing the leather from pineapple leaves. And the next is cactus leather by Deserto. So in this, this has been recently the talk of the leather market. So this leather has been made from the noble cactus leaves, and it is an organic and partially biodegradable, soft and durable. And this can be used not only for leather bags and all. This can be used to make furnitures and car interiors also, other than like wallets, purses and shoes. And this cactus particularly grows a large amount in Mexico, so that it doesn't require more of water. So depending upon the local area, the particular crops has been selected, and they are trying to produce this leather. So founders of this cactus leather is Adrian Lopez and Marte Capres, and these people are been in talk with famous leather brands to include their vegan leather into the leather market. And the next is corn leather by Veja. So this is a leather which is being produced from the resin of corn waste industry. So the next is flower leather by Fleather. So this is an Indian based company. So where they will be making the leather from the wastes which has been generated from the temples, flower wastes. So every year around 8 lakhs tons of flower waste is being dumped into the Indian rivers. So the process is not yet been revealed. So they are converting this flower waste into the leather. So this is an only Indian based company which is available as of now into the vegan leather market. And the next is apple peel leather by Vera. So this used apple peels which has been left over from the apple juice industry, and they use 50% apple peels and they use 50% polyurethane. So usually this apple peel might have been a waste. So this has been particularly in the northern Italy they are using. So other than this, what so many ideas we have, other ideas what we can have is food processing, specialty medicine manufacturing, vaccine manufacturing, vermicompost production, biopesticide manufacturing, vegetable processing plants, stem cell processing laboratory, artificial food sweeteners, genetically modified food processing, biofeedback therapy services, wastewater treatment plants, food supplements, etc. So many fields are there where you can get into entrepreneurship. It is not like that you should think a very new idea already available. We can little modify or we can introduce our innovation into that, and we can start our own entrepreneurship into it. And government initiatives, government is also giving various funds for the for the starting the entrepreneurship. Usually this Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Industry Enterprises, MSME, so they have various new schemes. So they have signed a cooperation agreement with the European Molecular Biology Organization to strengthen scientific interaction and collaborative research between India and Europe, as well as the government of India aims to scale up the number of startups in the biotechnology sector 2,500 to 2,000 over the next 2 to 3 years from 500 currently. Actually, now presently we have biotech startups, 500 is only there. Additionally, the government of India is planning to launch a venture capital fund of rupees 1,000 crores under the Department of Pharmaceuticals to support startups. As well as the government of Karnataka is planning to raise rupees 50 crore for a biotechnology dedicated fund in addition to the existing semiconductor fund of rupees 100 crore, in order to engage with the emerging technology and biotech space in the state. And then CSIR Institute of Himalayan Resource Technology has signed an MOU with Phyto Biotech to formalize the transfer of technology for the production of the unique autoclavable superoxide dismutase enzyme used in cosmetic, food and pharmaceutical industries for end application. So like that, so many schemes are available which has been given by the government to enhance or to encourage the entrepreneurship. So last, an entrepreneur isn't someone who owns a business, it's someone who makes things happen. Thank you. So if you have any queries, people can ask. I hope I had covered almost all the sectors.
Thank you, ma'am, for that informative talk. Participants, if you have any queries or questions, please unmute yourself or post it in the chat box. There is a question.
No, it is not banned in India. Question from Nandini, ma'am, is growing Jatropha crops is banned in India? No.
We'll do it.
Give one ನಿಮಿಷ questions ಇದೆ. Close ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾ?
Thank you, ma'am, for that informative talk. On behalf of the staff, student and management, the Oxford College of Engineering, I extend our heartfelt gratitude for you to have delivered this wonderful talk and lecture in this FDP session, organized by the Department of Biotechnology, sponsored by AICTE, Delhi. Thank you. Dear participants, we have the feedback link posted in the chat box. Kindly fill it. The link will be open for the next 5 minutes.
And I would like to express my gratitude to the convener, Dr. B.K. Manjunath, the Professor and Head Department of Biotechnology, and the coordinators for giving such an opportunities to deliver and lecture in this FD.